Well, I've been in the process of rewriting my Finding Traction course and got to lesson 13, which is about hope. And I was thinking, do I have a really good backup resource for hope? In other words, what do we say to guys who are starting to get discouraged in their journey of recovery, trying to walk away from embedded porn habits? And so I thought, you know what? It would be great to do a podcast around the topic of hope, and how much better to bring in my buddy Matt Dobscheutz from Porn Free Radio to talk about hope. So today's topic is there hope for me? Welcome aboard.
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, I thought in talking about hope, this whole idea, is there hope for me? It would be there's no better source that I can think of than the guy that ends every podcast with the phrase, take hope and take action. The man from Chicago, Matt Dobscheutz himself. So Matt, thanks for doing this crossover podcast with me. I sure appreciate it.
Yeah, well, this is really cool. We haven't done this in a while, a Porn Free Radio and Finding Traction podcast. So if you're a listener of Porn Free Radio, go in your podcast app right now and search Finding Traction and hit subscribe. Vice versa, if you're listening
Absolutely.
if you're listening to Vern Tomke and you're tired of his cowboy analogies and
Yes.
feel free to search Porn Free Radio and or search Matt Dobscheutz, Dobschuetz, if that's safer, and then hit subscribe.
There you go. UE, not EU. Well, talking about the Cowboys, it does bring up this topic of hope. There's an old proverb that says hope deferred makes the heart grow sick. And I don't know if you can actually identify with this as a Bears fan, but I want you to know that every year, Jerry Jones, if don't know who he is, he's the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. He convinces us fans that this year we are going to the Super Bowl. He has this amazing ability to convince us that this is the year. We start the year with hope, Matt. We start the year with hope, and we end up with a whimper and a tear. And, hope is deferred every year, and the heart gets sick. Now, I don't know, you probably can't relate to that as a Bear fan because you probably don't even start the year with hope. Is that accurate?
I would say that there's always a little bit of hope.
Okay.
I think, believe it or not, as a Bears fan, I sometimes have lower expectations. Sometimes I think, hey, let's get some wins against the Packers. Maybe let's win the division. Let's get a wild card spot. I would say, though, being a Cub fan for all the years before 2016, there had been so many heartbreaks and so many close calls that was one where I was really struggling with hope, where I had almost given up. So the Bears, I still enjoy the Bears, any given Sunday. You can find at least in American football, you can find a reason to get excited about a game, even if you're the underdog.
Right.
When you're a baseball team and you are 20 games out of first place, you realize you're not going to get a World Series like in June. And that's really demoralizing.
Well, there's that phrase in American football, any given Sunday, and there's always the hope that this could be an upset. So, and maybe as a Bears fan, you just lower your expectations. And, I'm going, as somebody once told me, if I never hope, I'll never be disappointed. That is not the approach that we want to take with recovery. So, Matt, I want to give you now you've been coaching a lot longer than I have, and I want to give you two scenarios where I see guys struggling with hope or hope being contested. And I'd love to get your feedback and around these guys. So let me present you two scenarios. The one scenario is a brand new guy that's come to realize that porn is no longer serving him, and now they could be maybe their late 20s, early 30s, but they might have been struggling with porn for now going on 10, 15 years plus, and they're going, my goodness, this has been such a big part of my life. Is there hope for me? So it's the new guys that are going, I can hardly even imagine myself without porn as a key role in my life. So that's scenario number one. Scenario number two is the person who's been at recovery for a while. Maybe they're even in a group, but they're only seeing mixed results. And they're starting to have doubts. Can I really do this? Maybe there's something wrong or defective with me. It's not working. And their hope is feeling more contested. And, is there hope for me? So again, I thought I'd come to you and ask you, how would you respond to these guys who are struggling with hope in this scenario?
Well, the first thing I would say, and I love the questions, by the way, the first thing I would say is just ask you a question. What would you define as hope? What is hope? What are we talking about when we talk about hope?
That's a good question. I guess at one level, could things be different? I have what has been my homeostasis or what has been my norm. Could I actually see the norm changing in my life to something completely different?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Like, is change possible, right?
Right.
Could there be something different? Could I live differently?
Right.
I think those are the hope in this case that we're looking for. In fiction, right? That if you're trapped, you're hoping for rescue. You're hoping someone finds you.
Right.
If you're single and you want to be married, you hope for the potential partner, romantic partner that you haven't met yet, right? There's a sense of, I want to be married. I want this thing to happen. Right. So in our case, right, it's something about, can I change? Is it possible? Maybe there's some of us who feel kind of trapped. Like, could I ever not have this?
Yeah. And Matt, and let me just say, I gave this scenario as somebody who's in their 20s and 30s. You and me both know we're dealing with guys 30s, 40s, 50s. We're not talking 10, 15 years. We're talking almost an adult lifetime, reaching back into their teens, where this was almost as oxygen to them. So these are some tough questions that people wrestle with.
Yeah, and I think you're interesting. Your phrasing struggle. I think some of us, like for me, I always kind of felt like this was a struggle. It was something I didn't want in my life that I kept going back to, which created a lot of self conflict. I didn't match my values. I didn't particularly like the type of guy I was when I was using porn. It later had impacts on my marriage. So I did feel like it was a struggle, quote unquote, for most of my life. Many guys, though, as you know, porn served them at some point. They enjoyed it. It was part of their life. It was part of what they did. But at some point, the costs of using porn, of problematic porn use, started taking over more of their life. For example, it started affecting their sex life. It started getting in the way of things that they found valuable. They started realizing, hey, I'm in my 30s and I'm still, using porn to cope with all negative emotions. That doesn't seem like an adult way of dealing with things. It's one thing if you're a 14-year-old and you're angry and
Yeah.
you go on a porn site. It's another thing if you're 34 and you have the same reaction, right? You have a bad day at work and you're scrambling to get online. At some point, there's this point where every guy who listens to your podcast or my podcast has decided, hey, my connection, relationship, use of porn is becoming a conflict to me. And the time when guys need hope really is at that point where usually they've tried to stop.
Right.
They've tried to change the relationship and they have gone against themselves. They've still gone back to it. They've tried to quit, and then for some reason they've gone back. And that's when guys start going, wow, can I ever change this? It's been such a normal part of my life. Even if I didn't like it, it's been just there all the time. Now, how do I do this?
Right. And the reason that they probably try to do it on their own is that was what felt like the safest solution. Well, I'll just stop. I don't have to tell anybody and I can protect myself. And it's like this never happened. But then they quickly realize, oh my goodness, this is not as easy as I thought. And at some level, they almost go, that's the hopeless feeling or unmanageable thing that starts creeping in the corners of their mind. Oh my, am I so defective and flawed that I can't change?
Yeah. I mean, I think guys don't start necessarily out of shame. They just figure, oh, I'll just quit this. Like they're not thinking, oh, this is a struggle. This is a problem. They're thinking, oh, maybe they've decided, hey, this isn't maybe something I want to be doing. But then the challenge of it is when they aren't able to follow through, or they find themselves going back and forth between using porn to meet needs, but then somehow feeling trapped by it and then trying to reform and kind of in that cycle. So I think this is just worth setting the table for what we're talking about is we're talking about guys who are at some point stuck in their relationship with porn. They're either right at the beginning and they're starting to count the costs and they're starting to go, how do I live differently? Or they're in recovery and they've hit kind of a plateau. They have a group of days that they can't get past, or they keep having starts and stops and they keep losing hope in that challenge. So
let's take some hope then. I'd love to hear from you how you approach guys in that place, kind of what's the starting point in how would you, once you set the table, what kind of meal would you bring to give so that we could chew on some hope today?
Yeah, well, one thing I think about hope, and I say at the end of my podcast, take hope and take action, meaning that hope is something that can be acquired, like a good, or it can be taken in, it can be gone after, it can be something that guys actually actively get.
I like that.
Versus something that just happens, just sort of, well, I just hope that one day the rescue plane will find me in my porn struggle and I'll just be evacuated. I think it's much more something that we go after, we acquire, we taste, we kind of lean into. So I have 5 things that I think help generate hope for us, whether we're right at the beginning of going, hey, I want to change my relationship with porn. I'm struggling to think of a way that I can change or transform, or wondering if it's even possible. Or if we're kind of at that stagnant or fatigued part of our recovery where we're kind of going, man, I don't feel like I'm really going anywhere. So here's 5 ways that I've kind of thought about. One thing that generates hope is the power of other people's stories.
Hmm. Okay.
Think about a lot of what even engages us with recovery groups, what
Mhm.
engages us with, even a powerful pastor's preaching,
Yep.
the the movies and TV shows that we really get engaged with. What is it? What's the commonality?
It's a story, right?
There's a story,
Yeah.
right? And for a story to really give us hope, we have to identify with the main character, with the guy telling the story. And we have to identify with where they start from. And that's usually one of the things that's really easy to connect with in recovery is when you hear someone else tell their story from childhood, tell some of the pitfalls they went through. We relate right away. Even if
Hmm.
it's day one for us,
Yep.
we can relate to that. But it's when they start talking about the transition, how their life changed in recovery, what the new things we're doing, there's something that goes through our head. If Vern was like me and had this challenge, and but then he did a couple things different, and now he's different than me, there's a sense of like, I could probably do that too. I don't think Vern is much more spiritual than me or, intellectual than me or whatever. Like
Right.
he's kind of like me. If
Right.
he can do it, I can do it.
And Matt, I look for that. I mean, I've occasionally heard some people who describe themselves as porn experts or this story. I mean, one guy that goes to a porn show and tries to with his wife and helping people, and then you find out they've never really struggled with porn. And I'm going, I can't relate to that. Uh, it was deeply, deeply embedded in my life. And I hear somebody else it's deeply embedded in their life, like it was with you. And I'm going, okay, now you get it. This was not a occasional little fling you had with porn. This was a central part. So when you tell me your story, okay, I'm listening now because your story is part of my story. So yeah, I'm tracking with you.
Yeah, I relate the same way. There's since I started coaching and you've started coaching, there's been a whole crop of new coaches out there, and some are really talented, younger folks. Like they've kind of gotten the same skills that we have, and maybe even some of the same kind of interest in helping people. But yeah, one of the coaches that I looked up recently was a young woman who was coaching men out of porn
Mhm.
addiction. And I looked at her bio and looked at her background, and she was originally coaching like millennials a couple years
Mhm.
ago. And I'm sure what happened is she coached a couple millennials and they expressed a porn problem. And then
Right.
she reinvented herself as a porn coach.
Right.
Now, could she be helpful? Maybe.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe she knows some tools. Maybe she's read some good books. Maybe she got my book and, got some
Right.
good ideas from that. I don't know. It's a shameless plug. But here's the thing. For me to have hope,
Yeah.
I
It's
really
hope.
need to hear someone else's story. I want to hear my story and someone else's story.
Absolutely.
And maybe your therapist doesn't need to have had this struggle, or maybe your coach doesn't need to have this struggle, but someone in your life, you need to
Mhm.
be going, oh, I'm like this person, and they change, so I can change too. And
Right.
so the first thing I'd say is, if you're struggling with hope to acquire it, to taste it, to get it, you're probably not in the room with people who have gone through the struggle, who are like you, who have started changing and transforming.
Right.
There's not enough people around. And so you could be, for example, the guy who's kind of starts and stops in recovery. You could be in kind of a dud group. I did a podcast once called The World's Worst
I remember
Recovery
that. I was
Group.
just going to bring that up. Nobody's changing.
Yeah, no one was changing. There was no
Yeah.
hope. You felt worse leaving than when you
Yeah.
got there. And you guys could be in a group like that. And again, being passive about it is not going to get you more hope.
Oh.
And there's things you can do. Sometimes you can change the temperature of the meeting by just asking for guys to be more real and open, raising the commitment. Or there might be another group that you need to get into. But one of the main reasons guys don't have hope is they're not around other people who have stories of hope. So it's kind of like, you know, the old saying, like, you're the average of the five guys. You make the average of the five guys that you're in relationship with. It's a money thing. I think the health of your recovery and the hope in your recovery is the average of the five guys that you're doing recovery with. So if you're on your own, you only have your own resource of hope. And if you've kind of been in that cycle, you have nothing. You're empty.
Yeah.
And if we're within a couple other guys who are just kind of duds and not really doing anything, you're going to have the average of whatever they have.
Right.
So that's number one.
Good.
Other people's stories. Here's another one. This generates hope. Small wins.
Okay.
You're not going to recover. You're not going to get a year of sobriety tomorrow. You can't acquire a year of sobriety, or you can't acquire all the tools necessary to sustain long-term recovery in the next 12 hours.
Right.
But can you bookend a challenging situation today? Could you make a plan for this week? Could you commit to a call? There's a number of steps you could take today to be safe, to make good choices. I was in a 12-step group once where we were talking about someone who acted out in the morning, just blew it first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And their thought was, well, maybe tomorrow. And I remember this kind of more mentor type and a person who had longer sobriety was like, why do you want to sacrifice the rest of today?
Right.
Like, why not make a plan for lunch or make a plan for, 11 o'clock and recommit right now? Yeah. Why start tomorrow? And I think that's the idea, right? We get this idea, well, the only significant change is going to come from this big win.
Yeah.
This big line in the sand that we draw. No more porn for me. I'm done. I'm like Mel Gibson and Braveheart and whatever, some masculine
freedom,
masculine movie. I'm going to make unfortunately we get this from media also. We don't always get the hero's journey. We get these heroes that we put on a pedestal, like they're not like us. And we see them have this dramatic speech, and we think that's how we're going to do recovery. We're going to have a dramatic speech, put our flag in the sand, and that's going to be the end of it. Well, what happens is when you act out after that dramatic speech and flagpole moment, you start telling yourself, well, I guess that didn't work.
Right. Yeah. And let me use an example of small wins that you brought up, the idea of bookending something at the, so one of the things you've talked about in some of your podcasts is having a travel plan. And I sometimes joke with the guys, you need a reverse travel plan. By that, I mean a travel plan for when your wife goes away. So, for example, when we do check-ins, we talk about upcoming challenges and threats and opportunities. And so, for example, to say to a guy, okay, your wife's going away. She's going to be gone for 2 days. I'd like you to bookend me the last thing you do, or bookend the group, the last thing you do before you go to bed. And so you come out of that and you're going, you know what? This is the very first time that my wife's gone away that I didn't immediately rush to porn. That's a small win. In fact, that's not just a small win. That's a huge win. Do you realize that in your journey, this is the very first time that your wife going away has not resulted in the inevitable slip? Take it as a win. That's huge. That's hope going forward. That's change. Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, and this goes back to some of the positive psychology ideas from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He wrote the book Flow, where he was at University of Chicago for a long time. He was trying to analyze what made people successful at work, and he said, people are, kind of most happy, find their most meaning in their job when they're building skills to overcome challenges. And he said, if the challenge is too big at the beginning, they get overwhelmed. If the challenge is too easy, they get bored. So the flow state is actually when you're, having challenges that are just big enough that you have to build some new skill to get over, but they're not too big that you're overwhelmed. So, for example, I want to be porn free for the rest of my life, starting right now. That's a big challenge. Chances are, if you haven't had a lot of success in this area, you don't have the tools and skills you need. So a better challenge would be, let me be porn free today. Let me make a 1 week plan and let me see if I can put the skills and things. Let me try it this week. Let me try a couple things and build the skill I need to overcome that challenge. And as that challenge diminishes, I can go a week. Yeah. Well, what do I need to go 2 weeks? I need a couple other things in place. What do I need for 30 days, right? In my course and in my my training class, I say, to go porn free for a year, you have to go porn free for a month. To go porn free for a month, you have to go porn free for a week. So a big challenge, you're going to benefit from small wins. That's going to actually build the energy and flow state and momentum that you need to take on bigger and bigger challenges. So, that's good. All right. So other people's stories help us generate hope. Small wins help us generate hope. Here's one for you. More action, taking more action.
What do you mean?
Well, here's an example. I get this thing a lot, and guys will describe a situation where they're at the health club, and they're working out, and they get distracted by someone in yoga pants or someone else working out, and they start overly focusing on that other person. And so the joke that I say a lot in our Rev groups, and I say it every once in a while, is, if you're struggling at the health club looking at other people, right, add some more weight. You're not working out hard enough. You're getting into a state of where you probably need to put some more action into your recovery. If not, what ends up happening is you kind of hit this plateau or this stagnant point, and you tell yourself a story. Well, I guess this isn't working. Right? I must not have enough of what I need to overcome this situation. And what the actuality is you're just not putting in enough energy.
So are you sharpening your focus? Are you sharpening, if I sharpen my intensity, then maybe it's like maybe a lens. If I sharpen my focus and intensity here, then those other things will be less in focus or less. Is that partly where we're going here?
Yeah. I just think like when we're realizing that we're feeling kind of just flat, when we're getting into more of a hopeless state, which is like, that's kind of like a story we're telling ourselves. I can't handle the health club or I can't manage this situation. Well, no, there's a way you can manage it. One of the ways you can manage it is increase your intensity.
Pick it up a notch.
And look at it as a challenge. Like, okay, I'm getting a little soft here. So what can I do to not tell myself like a hopeless story? What can I do to kind of lean into this? Let me work out a little harder. I guarantee if you start working out harder, like really pushing yourself, you're going to realize, hey, I don't have to be a victim to what people are wearing at the health club. I can focus on my own level of intensity and engage And that's actually going to generate hope. Looking at challenges as opportunities to grow it generates hope. You mentioned traveling.
Mm-hmm.
The whole reason I even started creating recovery plans was I kept screwing up in hotel rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And I started adopting a travel plan when I traveled. Now, the aha moment for me at some point doing Porn Free Radio was, what if I just had a travel plan for my regular life?
Right.
That was kind of the idea. It's like, because traveling, I'd be like, well, here's the commitments I want to make. Here's what I want to do. Why? Because the challenge of being in a hotel room was such a big challenge for me. But once I started building a plan, once I started leaning in, once I started adding some weight, intensity, and intention to how I traveled, guess what? The hotel room became a great place to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I remember at one point, this is at the height of my travel, I remember packing a yoga mat for the hotel room. I actually jammed this yoga mat in my suitcase so that I could do some stretching and yoga in the morning. I'm like thinking, that never occurred to me that you could work out in a hotel room. For all the years that I traveled and struggled with porn, it never occurred to me, I could do something physical to actually be good for my body in a hotel room.
Otherwise, we're left with the only solution. I guess I can never travel again on my own, or I'll be like the guy you mentioned that sits in the hot car with his family at the water slides because he can't go in because there's bathing suits.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mentioned this in an episode. I think I mentioned this in an episode where I went to the pool as the pandemic started to wane.
Okay.
And so it'd been 2 years since I had seen any bathing suits. And it was like,
Right.
and I was like, Bugs Bunny in one of those Warner Brothers cartoons, like a ooga, like my eyes were bugging out. And I started diving off the diving board. I ended up doing like 50 dives, and I got so into diving, I totally forgot about all the bathing suits.
Great example.
So this idea of like, we can look at our challenges as a place where we tell ourselves a hopeless story, or we can look at them as opportunities and go, you know what, I'm going to generate some hope here by leaning in and increasing my intensity.
Let me just say, one of the themes you said so far, and I'm sure it's going to continue, it goes back to the podcast you did. One of the ones that just stuck with me, being an owner, not a victim. Going back to the very beginning, you said, you know what? Hope is something that you can grab onto. It's not this thing that just passively either you have it or you don't. It's a little bit like you said, arousal is something that we engage or not engage. And I like that. You know what? Hope is something which is within our grasp that we can grab onto. We can be owners of hope. So I'm hearing that. All right, number 4.
All right, number 4, and we kind of hinted about this a little bit, but I'm going to expand upon it, is, having other people's stories is really important for us. Small wins, more action, intensity. But I do think there is a role for authentic mentors, meaning we want to engage with people who get the struggle, but are also modeling what it looks like to be porn free, to be managing these things going forward. I kind of feel like I see sometimes guys having some peers. Sometimes guys sort of get together and they get some wins together, but I do think there's a role for the sponsor, for the coach, for just someone a little farther along, that is active in your recovery. And I think there's a couple of reasons. One, I think that guys who have really gone through this and are now leading, they actually have hope kind of in abundance. And I remember this really powerful thing that happened in one of our recovery groups. We had this leader. It's a good friend of mine. He's a good accountability partner with me. His name's John. I remember at the beginning of these recovery groups, a lot of people came in with a lot of insecurity. Am I good enough? Am I going to be able to do this? Boy, this might be really hard. This is vulnerable. I don't want to be here, you know. And John would get up and say, hey, listen, you might not feel a lot of hope right now based on your history, based on your self-attempts to get over this challenge. But he's like, I have had recovery and I have hope for you. I'm holding hope for you.
Yes.
And I remember I got a letter from a guy, this is a year or two after the group. And I asked the question, what stuck with you from the group? Is there any teaching? Was there any night that was important? And he goes, what stuck for me was when John got up there and said, I have hope for you. Because I had no hope for myself in that moment.
Wow.
But here's the thing. Throughout the weeks of the group, sometimes he would feel hopeless. And he would say, you know what? I feel hopeless right now. But I believe John when he says he has hope for me. I'm going to choose to trust John's hope, even though I don't feel like I have hope of my own.
Right.
And the only way we can get that from people is if they're authentic mentors. They have gone through this and they're now looking back to help and serve. You see it a lot in 12-step groups where there's a sponsor. That's the 12th step.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That if you're in a group where the 12th step is not happening, you're not in a 12-step group.
Right.
You're in some 12-step like cult. And I say that in a serious way. I think when you're in a 12-step group where people aren't reaching out, when people aren't looking for people still suffering and wanting to help,
right,
you're just following a set of rules that sort of looks like the 12 steps. So if there aren't any sponsors in the group you're going to, it's not a 12-step group.
You know, Matt, why I like this one, this fourth one you just said is because, and I wrote that exact thing down, let me hold hope for you. You know what? The first three, you could hear what we're saying is, come on, just hold out hope. What is your problem? Like, hold on to hope. It's something you do. And I think this fourth one says, despite that, there's times where our hope wavers. You know, it could be following a relapse. It could be following a difficult week. And what you're saying is, you know what? An authentic mentor is somebody that recognizes that there's difficult seasons. There's, you know, and you need to have that person who, when despite your best efforts, your hope is feeling fragile or thin, you have somebody that can hold hope for you. And as you also said, you can also in turn do that for somebody else. That's the goal of the 12th step. So that's an important one, just to say, yeah, we need that for each other.
Well, and the ownership, you brought up the owner victim. The ownership for the guy who's feeling hopeless is, okay, I feel hopeless right now, and I'm struggling generating the hope Matt's talking about. But I can choose to be in relationship with a mentor.
Yes.
I can
choose hope for me.
Yeah, I can choose to be honest with someone. You know, sometimes if, you know, and I'm keep using the 12 steps as an example, but it's a good example. You know, sometimes you meet someone who's really motivated to go through the steps and they don't have a sponsor. And you can tell if they're going to succeed in recovery, if they're intentional about getting a sponsor. You know, they sometimes have to ask 2 or 3 people, are you available to be a sponsor? Could you help me? Or they meet with a sponsor and it's not a good fit. They have to find someone else. But if they really go through that intention of finding a sponsor and they find someone who works well with them and they start going after what that mentor has, those are the people who recover in the 12 steps.
Okay.
If someone's just coming to meetings going, well, I kind of hope that one of these mature people with long-term recovery reaches out to me, may or may not happen.
Right.
And especially if you feel like like kind of passive, like a victim, you know, like, oh, no one reaches out to me or no one. It's like, no, the people who recover are the ones who go after the sponsors, go after the mentors. And there are some mentors out there for sure. And again, if you're doing this alone, you don't have any mentors. And so so if you're feeling hopeless one day, there's no one to stand in the gap for you.
Yep.
So that's why it's so important to go after authentic mentors.
Okay. Last but not least, number 5.
The last thing is a commitment to a training plan. Commitment to a training plan. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this in terms of running. Vern, what do you think the possibility of you, do you think right now, like this week, you could run a marathon?
No.
Okay. Right.
Definitely not.
You don't have the skills. You
Right.
don't have
Or the body.
the training to run a marathon. Now, do you have any leg injuries or anything? This might be a bad example for you, but do you
not really.
okay. So
I'm good.
you don't have any potential leg injuries. So do you think if you were able to commit to a training plan? I mean, we're talking about a very a low impact, a long window. Do you think at some point you could build up the skills to run a marathon?
Absolutely. Like I've run 10K in my past. But I have I absolutely could run a marathon.
Right. So here's the thing. You have an idea that you could run a marathon. You even have, it feels like a possibility.
Right.
But there's no hope for you to run a marathon right now.
Got it.
Unless you're committed to a training plan. You know for a fact that I had a friend, Vinny, just a really in shape guy, always an athlete. One of our other friends was running a marathon, and Vinny goes, "Hey, I'm going to run the marathon too." And we're like, "Come on!" And you know what Vinny did? Put on his shoes, jumped into the race, and just gutted out 26 miles of running.
Wow.
Now, that is neither you or I.
No.
And probably 99% of everyone listening to this podcast has the ability to do that.
Right.
But everyone listening to this podcast, potentially, if you don't have a physical problem, has the ability to commit to a training plan, even if it's slow, even if it doesn't look quite like what we want in terms of perfection. We're not going to run 4-minute miles. We could commit to training and commit to a training plan that would lead to us running a marathon.
And a marathon is not a bad imagery because frankly, it's very likely that when you look at your life as being porn free, it feels to you like a marathon. I'm tracking with you. That's good.
Yeah, like I really like bass guitar. I don't have a bass guitar right now. And every once in a while I have this thought, it'd be fun to play the bass. I've even gone to the step of finding a training program that would help me learn the bass. I forget the name of it. It's a really cool, it's a really funny name, like bass, something like beginner to badass playing the bass. It's like,
okay.
And actually it's very, the program, the training itself seems inspiring. One of the things they did on the training page, the landing page for this program, it's an online program, is they had a guy who committed to going through the whole program and had never picked up the bass before. Okay. And they created all these videos, week 1, week 2, where he was at. And he was very faithfully committed to the training plan. And at the end, it was pretty crazy. It was like, I don't know, 6 months later, he's like, boom, 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 boom. He's going up and down the bass and clicking around, playing with an AC/DC song or something. And you're like, and you believe it because you're like, wait a second. You could tell no bass, 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 no bass
Right.
6 months later, because he was committed to the training plan,
Yeah.
he ends up, proficient.
Sure.
And so how does this generate hope? When we find the right training plan, when we find the plan that actually does some of these other things, connects us with other people, starts building small wins, even sometimes helps us overcome some challenges and get some more intensity. Ideally, if there's an authentic mentor involved, that would be great too. That commitment to a training plan starts generating hope, because what happens is you play, a simple Beatles song, and you go, wait, this sounds like bass, or you run your 5K. Sometimes in marathon training, a 5K is one of the milestones.
Right.
You run the 5K and you go, that was 3 miles. I know a marathon is, whatever, 8 times this. Is that the right? 26? I don't even know. Whatever it is, it's
close.
But you kind of go, wait a second. I built up to this. Well, then maybe I run a 10K next. And as I start, and so that builds hope. We start realizing, hey, I'm building skills to overcome challenges, and I have a plan that I know if I follow, if I stick with it, the hope starts to build. The hope starts to become a reality.
Well, and I love it when I hear guys that have a really concerted plan, and that's, why with your 1 week plan or your 30-day plan, and these are not static plans. These are fluid. These are ones that we're adjusting, the ones that we are going back and examining, but guys are starting to say, you know what? I've never hit a week before. This feels different. Or I've never hit a month before. I'm starting to get some of this brain fog starting to lift from this pornographic mindset or this whatever it is. That's so encouraging, but it doesn't come magically. It comes out of what you said, going, okay, I have some commitments that I am, and not just coming, I'm telling other people what they are. I'm calling it out. I'm saying, I got to do this.
And the guy without a plan, a recovery plan, and it doesn't have to be the plan I suggest, but a guy who has no recovery plan. I mean, we're talking about habits, commitments that he's committed to, some bottom lines, some people he's making himself accountable. The guy who has none of that is essentially like the guy who puts on his running shoes and on Monday morning goes, I'm going to start training for a marathon, and just sort of runs, right?
Right.
No plan of how far or what his milestone should be or how fast or whatever, just kind of running. And think about it. Maybe 1% of guys starts doing that and they get kind of the energy of running and they build up momentum. But 99% of guys are going to get up on day 2. They're going to be tired. They're going to be kind of like, and they might try it again. And then day 3, they chuck it. And so you mentioned your follow-up was, what about the guy who's, has been at this for a while, but he's experiencing mixed success? That to me is a plan problem. It's a training problem. Because theoretically he could have heard other people's stories. He could be around some other guys with some hope. He could have actually experienced small wins. He may have even traveled more safely or raised his intensity or worked with a mentor. But if he's still having mixed success, doubts are creeping in, he's kind of like, I think it's a training program. It's a lack of a commitment to a training plan. And
so for example, Matt, in his training program, he would need a good training program would deal with one of your last couple episodes, the whole one on edging, where if you don't have a training program which deals with the reality of edging, and that's not something you've acknowledged or you have as part of your clear approach to edging, if you don't have that in your plan, you're not going to be successful. There's an example of a plan problem where you're continuing to edge and you have a defective plan. So that would be one example.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out too that a lot of guys start a change with their relationship with pornography because they have an intense moment in their life. Sometimes guys call it a rock bottom moment. Sometimes guys call it a moment of clarity or grace. Sometimes it's something scary that happens.
Right.
And so you get just a ton of momentum just by the repulsion of whatever that event was. Oh, I want to get as far away from that as possible. I don't want my wife to divorce me. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to go to prison. Whatever it is, right? I don't want my kids to ever find porn on my computer again, right? Something like that, right? Some big thing happens. But sometimes people don't really create a commitment or commit to a training plan. They just, honestly, it was such a scary moment. They just get this kind of flight into health where they just experience some sobriety. They are able to stay away from porn for a period of time, but without a plan.
For a period of time.
But at some point, that wanes, whatever that was, and porn can creep back in. And one of the problems guys have is they look back to a period of sobriety in their past and they go, well, why can't I get back to what I had before? And it's like, well, you didn't have much of a plan. There wasn't really anything that was keeping that going or keeping you engaged. And at some point it ran out. Whatever the gas was that you got from that one event ran out. Yeah. And unless you have a plan to generate more energy and keep you engaged, you're going to have the same results over and over. And here's the thing that I like to say to guys. Whatever your reason for quitting porn or stopping back then was, it's changed now.
Yep.
You have to come up with a new kind of reason and purpose for quitting porn, your new why, and you need to commit to a new plan. Last year's plan, the plan 3 years ago where you got caught at work and were embarrassed, that's over. You can't recreate that scenario. You have to start with where you're at right today. And it's like, I mean, for example, I ran a lot of 5Ks at one point, but I had some running injuries. I've sometimes thought it would be fun to get back into running.
Yeah.
But I can't start where I was at before. I'm heavier. I've had these injuries that I have to manage. So my training plan has to look very different than it was 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
And that's the same for these guys in recovery. It's like your training plan looks different now. It's going to have to look different for you to really get the results.
Okay, so let's go back and just review quickly these five. The first one was get hope from other people's stories. The second one was around small wins, celebrate small wins. The third one, I didn't write that one down. What was the third one, Matt?
It had to do with intensity, taking more action, looking at challenges as opportunities to grow.
Okay. The fourth one was find authentic mentors. And the fifth one was commitment to a training plan from there. Okay. Well, that's been super helpful. I'm glad that we've gone through that. I would love you, Matt, to end with that great line as only you could say, take hope and take action.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, how about them Cowboys?
Well, no, I got to start small. We can't run a marathon until we run a 5K. So
how about them Cowboys?
There you go. So, Matt, why don't you sign us out with that great line?
Well, guys, it's been great connecting with you today. It's been great, Vern, seeing you. So I want to say to everyone, take hope, take action, and
the Bears.
The Bears.
See you guys. Love it. Oh, that was great.